And then as soon as we are streaming live. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Kevin Finkler, your ASUN Director of Elections. Tonight's debate will consist of the School of Journalism and the College of Business. Before we begin, I would like to go over some rules. As with everything this past year, we are conducting these debates via Zoom. Please refrain from typing anything into the chat box unless it is a candidate question, as to prevent from any direct distractions to the candidates. That being said, we are utilizing the Q&A function, so please feel free to use that to ask any questions you may have. Here are the rules for tonight's debate. Tonight's debate will be between the Senate candidates for the School of Journalism. The candidates are seated in alphabetical order by last name and will be given 1 minute and 30 seconds to introduce themselves and state their platform. Candidates will be given 1 minute and then 30-second warnings on their time. If a candidate goes over their allotted time, they will be warned and then have their mics muted to ensure that we have an efficient and fair debate. The first portion of tonight's debate will consist of candidate-focused questions formally based on their listed bio and goals on the websites. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30-second responses with an option for a 30-second rebuttal to add to the original answer, respond to another candidate's answer, and/or ask a question of another candidate if possible. If a question is directly asked from one candidate to another, the asked candidate will have 30 seconds to respond, and thus will end the portion of the rebuttal process. We will then move on to the next portion of our debate, which will consist of general ASUN questions about ASUN and the duties as potential senators. A similar format and time will be used for this section as well. The last question portion of the night will consist of student questions submitted to tonight's debate and/or submitted via social media during the day. A similar format and timing structure will be used for this section. Finally, to end tonight's debate, we will hear from the candidates' closing statements that will once be again limited to 1 minute and 30-second responses. After the conclusion of the debate, we will thank the candidates and the audience for their cooperation tonight, and we will give ASUN Democracy a virtual round of applause. Candidate, do you have any questions at this time?
I do not. Thank you, Director Finkler.
All right. We will move on to our first section of tonight's debate, which will be a 1 minute and 30-second opening statement. So whenever you would like to begin.
Thank you. I first want to start by thanking my competitors for making it tonight, obviously keeping the competition hot. No, in all seriousness, my name is Vanessa Ribeiro. I go by she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a sophomore at the Reynolds School of Journalism with minors in political science and race studies. Additionally, I also serve as the current ASUN Senator for the Reynolds School of Journalism, and unless I'm doing my math wrong, I'm pretty sure I have a good chance of securing this position next Senate. It's because of that I don't really want to spend this time talking about what I have done in ASUN or what makes me qualified for this position. Rather, I'm here to answer the question of why am I here? In my first 2 years at UNR, I was blown away at the opportunities to increase my capacities for learning, listening, and then creating activism based on that. In the midst of the BLM movement, I was blown away at the breadth and depth of the lived experiences of my peers and my classmates. And me, as a person in a position of power, found myself hitting this wall, asking myself, where do we go from here? Me, as a woman of power and of privilege, felt powerless. And if that's how I felt, how did these marginalized students without a platform feel? In order to create change on the rhetoric of progress and equality and reform and healing, then we need a senator who's going to be representative of all voices, make voices valued, vitalized, and heard. We need a representative like me at that Senate table. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into our first question portion of the night. These questions were derived from your bios and goals. There will be only one, and then as we move into the other sections, you will have, other questions as well too. So, candidate Ribeiro, in your last goal, you state you want to eliminate elitism in student organizations and other campus organizations. What example of elitism would you eliminate within your powers as a senator?
Thank you so much. What a great question. Specifically, my inspiration for why I had this goal was actually through my own experience in ASUN through the internship. In the internship, I found myself quite intimidated by the senators and people at the departments. They kind of was groups of people in polos, and it was nothing more than that. And it wasn't until, my mentor and senator bring me in and really acted like she knew me and brought me into the conversation that people kind of addressed me. But before that, I was just kind of a shadow on the walls. And a lot of people, as I learned through my outreach, feel like ASUN is a very whitewashed, desensitized association. And those are the words of students, not from me. And as student leaders who are meant to be advocating for inclusion and, campus spirit, it breaks my heart to hear that. So through that, I hope through my position in ASUN that I can advocate for other senators to really consider what this position of representation means to them. What are they standing for, and what are they trying to prove? When they say things at the Senate table or in committee, or when they act in any capacity as a senator, they're sending messages to their students. And those messages can go a long way. They can make them feel included and valued and vitalized, or it can result in the absolute opposite. And I would definitely strive towards the first one.
Thank you, Kenneth Ribeiro. We will then move on to the next section of our debate, which will derive of general questions of ASUN, past ASUN experiences, and your vision for ASUN in general. There will be a couple, since you are the only one running for this position. So we'll give you plenty of chances to speak your mind and speak towards your vision of ASUN. So first and foremost, what's one thing you've seen from this past session that you believe was lacking, and how do you plan on changing that?
That is definitely a question that I can speak from my experience as a chair for a committee. As I sat as the chair for the Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and at the beginning of the session, as we started having conversations about identity, I realized that some senators weren't really in the capacity to have those conversations. And I think that we find ourselves being stagnant in a lot of senses because senators are simply not involving them in areas where they're passionate. So really it's getting those first steps situated of who I need to talk to, what I want to accomplish, and kind of in what realm of jurisdiction do I need to create change. And senators should be working on projects that they are passionate about, not projects that they are simply assigned or to fill the time or to get their outreach hours. Projects that they are speaking from out of the needs and desires of students, and projects that they have a passionate connection to, and driving senators to really address and recognize and confront those biases that are stopping them, or those deterrents that are stopping them, is going to be really integral to their success as a senator. So really, I think a problem I saw, to kind of summarize, was a lack of passion, a lack of accountability, and a lack of engagement. And I think that all of those things can be fixed if we focus our efforts as senators into areas that we truly are passionate and care about.
Thank you, Kenneth Ribeiro, for that answer. Okay, we will move into our next answer. In this past year, ASUN has seen a consistent opposition from students, and seen groups on this campus continue to see ASUN in a negative way. In your role as senator, what would you do to better serve your college, and how do you hope to change this perception of ASUN?
Another great question, and it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about just kind of the stigma around ASUN. And I think that a really good way of changing that is to create more meaningful connections with our constituents, putting a face behind a name, and also, going into that pillar of inclusion, not just having these diverse students and having equal opportunities, but also letting those students know that their contributions are valuable and welcomed on our campus. And I think the best way to do that is to create those connections on a meaningful and individual basis, and to really show that you're being cognizant of their needs and to be receptive. Additionally, I think a huge part of being receptive and open to your constituents is making yourself accessible. So that means not allowing students to come to you, but you going to them. What that shows them is that I, as an individual, and I, as a representative, value your experiences and the things you have to say. And if I build that relationship, and if I show them this is what I stand for in my role as a representative at ASUN, then I hope that that will slowly create reform. That's what I can do with my individual college, but in terms on an ASUN scale, I think that part of that stigma is correct. We need to change the actual ideals of the senators. We need to change the reason why these senators are involved in the body in the first place. In my opinion, if a senator is not there for the right reasons, I don't think they should be at the table at all.
Thank you, Kenneth Ribeiro. We will move into our last question in this section. In the recent years, the university has seen a consistent uptick of hate crimes targeted at underrepresented groups on campus. How would you, as senator, ensure that all students in these groups feel safe and comfortable walking on our campus?
So this is definitely a topic that I gained a lot of insight through my advocacy of work in my first 2 years of college. And it definitely kind of reaches a gray area when we talk about what's allowed on campus and what's included in free speech. And unfortunately, just in our position as an institution, we can't hinder the free speech of certain people, even if it creates a detriment to the experience of another group of students. So while we can't stifle that speech, what we can do is create safe, open spaces that are inclusive of the needs of those students. So let's say if there's a speaker on campus and a student's uncomfortable, they have a group of people and a space where they can talk about that. And they are going to feel valued for those experiences, and they're going to be recognized for those experiences. So ensuring that each individual group genuinely feels that their representation is valued and also just people are being cognizant of those values. We as senators have a commitment to those students, right? So in terms of how to become a proper advocate, you can't really just pull things out of thin air. You first have to go to the affected group. You have to sit there and listen, and you have to understand their deterrents. Once you understand those deterrents, you create solutions. But again, you have to keep them involved in that process. You can create a solution that is completely desensitized and off-key to what they actually want to accomplish. So by involving them in the process and truly giving them the voice and giving them the platform, then you can better react to their needs and create those safe spaces for those students.
Thank you for that answer. We will now move into our last question portion of the night. We do have a question from the audience. Again, we'll have a 1-30-second response to this question. How should ASUN actively combat performative activism and savior complexes to equally benefit marginalized communities on campus?
Wonderful question. Thank you so much. So there's actually an author, a sociologist of a book talking about white fragilism. And she kind of talks about how white progressives who think that all the work is done and can choose who has the space for activism and who doesn't are equally as bad as the people perpetuating the racial system. So these are white people who, again, are performative in their allyship in terms of just adding to the campaign in order to seize the benefits of that. So I think a huge part of this is educating, right? I think that us as leaders and people in positions of power who have the competency and the availability and the resources to understand the depth of these issues, it's our obligation to extend those lessons to people who don't have those same opportunities. So I would use my position of advocacy to really inform people, to create more workshops. And I actually already taught a workshop about allyship and leadership. And the first thing I said was allyship is not an easy process. And I understand that in order to be an ally, it's going to be something that I have to work towards the rest of my life. So you posting a post on Instagram is not allyship. It goes back to that deeper level of understanding, listening about those desires and deterrents, and then acting on reform and the changes that group wants to see. So again, I think a huge part of this is just education, and that can be done through a variety of marketing tactics of departments on campus, and obviously just individual dialogue.
Thank you for that answer. We will now move into your final candidate statement. Again, you have 1-30 seconds to expand on anything you didn't get to touch on tonight, why the voters should vote for you, and any last words you would like to explain to the audience.
All right, thank you so much. Something that I do want to get clear is that UNR is a phenomenal institution with phenomenal students that deserve to be celebrated. But in that same vein, the work is never done. UNR could do better, our association could do better, and those students could have a more enriching and fulfilling experience on our campus. Through my position in ASUN, I want to encourage representatives to think about what their platforms mean to them and how they can utilize it to increase marginalized and underrepresented voices. It has been an extreme pleasure to be a representative of the J School, and my peers and colleagues astound me every single day with their creations. Specifically through journalism and media, we have the opportunity to tell stories, to talk about the experiences of others, and to celebrate their identities. Through that, I've learned and I've been engaged, and I think it's the right of every student on our campus to also have the opportunity to engage in that process. It has been an extreme honor to serve as the ASUN Senator for the 80th session, and I can't wait to continue my legacy at the Reynolds School. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, that concludes our debate for the School of Journalism. I would like to give a virtual round of applause to the candidate for their answers and for the audience for their questions as well. Thank you so much. And again, for all of those, please remember that voting is March 10th and 11th at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can vote on Web Campus and you can vote in person. And starting this year, if you are a member of multiple colleges and would like to vote for this candidate, you have that option this year. You may now be able to vote in multiple colleges that you are enrolled in. So remember, voting starts March 10th and 11th. Thank you, candidates. And we will move on to the debate tonight for the School of Business, or the College of Business, I should say. We will take a 5-minute break and come back at 7:55. And Asia, if you could please come make Alexander, Cynthia, Jace, Leslie, and yes, all of those candidates back to panelist view. And for those in attendance tonight, please feel free to submit your questions early now for the College of Business. We will get into that debate shortly, but all the questions for the previous debate have been wiped. So you may now start typing those questions into the Q&A box whenever you would like. Asia, if Yesenia, are you by chance, do you have a different name or are you one of the candidates? I just want to make sure you don't have a different name posted. Otherwise, we will move you back to attendee.
She's an attendee. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I just want to make sure they didn't have their name is somebody else and they were actually one of the candidates. And then Asia, if you also can make Vanessa an attendee as well. Okay, we will give it 3 more minutes and then we will see if Morgan and Anton, I don't know how to pronounce their name correctly, decide to show up. We will see. Okay, and as well, you are all being made co-host, so feel free to turn on your videos whenever you would like.
I can't turn on my video.
I can't turn on my video either.
I'm muted, so sorry about that. Okay, there's Leslie, and then we just need Jace as well. Jace, it looks like you're a co-host, so you can go. Perfect. Awesome, and then we will give it 2 more minutes. Again, for those attending, please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions of the candidates for the College of Business. This will be if we have all the rest of the attendees or participants show up, it will be a lengthy debate. Please don't feel like you have to get them in now, but I highly recommend getting them in now because it might become a first come, first served basis in terms of those questions. So please feel free to ask them in the chat box or the Q&A function. All right, and we will give it 1 more minute. Before we get started, if I could go ahead, Cynthia and Leslie, I asked the other candidates as well too. I just want to make sure I don't mispronounce anyone's names wrong. So if you could please pronounce your last names, just so I'm aware.
It's Beltran.
Beltran, okay.
Ramirez.
Ramirez, okay. That's what I assumed. I just did not want to make the assumption live on the live stream, so I really appreciate it. If I do somehow happen during it to mispronounce anyone's names, please, I do apologize. There are, for some reason, those moments where I cannot even pronounce the simplest words. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me talking all day kind of just leads to it. So I do apologize in advance, and please, I ask to accept my apology and do not take it personally. All right, and then we will go ahead and get started right now. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Kenneth Mcnutt, your ASUN Director of Elections. Tonight's debate will consist of the College of Business. Before we begin, I would like to go over some rules. As with everything this year, we are conducting these debates virtually over Zoom. Please refrain from typing anything into the chat box unless it is a candidate question, as to prevent any distractions to the candidates. That being said, we are utilizing a Q&A function, so please feel free to use that to ask any questions you may have. Let us now go into tonight's debate rules. Tonight's debate will be between the senator candidates for the College of Business. Candidates are seated in alphabetical order by last name and will be given 1 minute and 30 seconds to introduce themselves and state their platform. Candidates will be given 1 minute and then 30-second warnings on their time. If a candidate goes over the allotted time, they will be warned and then will have their mics muted by me to ensure that we have an efficient and fair debate. The first portion of tonight's debate will consist of candidate-focused questions formulated based on their listed bio and goals from the website. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30-second responses with an option for a 30-second rebuttal to add on to their original answer, respond to another candidate's answer, and or ask a question of another candidate. If a question is directly asked from one candidate to another, the asked candidate will have a 30 seconds to respond, and thus will end the portion of the rebuttal process. The next portion of the debate will be consisted of general ASUN questions about ASUN and the duties as potential senators. A similar format and time will be used for this section as well. The last question portion of the night will consist of student questions submitted to tonight's debates via the Q&A function and or submitted via social media today. A similar format and timing structure will be used for this section as well. Finally, to end tonight's debate, we will hear the candidates' closing statements that will once again be limited to a 1 minute and 30-second response time. After the conclusion of the debate, we will thank the candidates and the audience for their cooperation tonight and give ASUN Democracy a virtual round of applause. At this time, candidates, do you have any questions? Okay, so tonight's debates, we will be going in alphabetical order, like I just mentioned. So candidate Beltran will go first, and I apologize if I am messing up the alphabet right now. I believe then candidate Mcnutt would then go next, and then candidate Pilks, and then candidate Ramirez. Please stop me if I've misconstrued our alphabet. All right, we will go in that order. Thank you, everyone, and thank you in advance to the audience bearing with me through tonight's debates. So we will begin with candidate Beltran with a 1 minute and 30-second response time.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Cynthia Beltran, and I'm a first-year College of Business student with an emphasis in business management and a minor in graphic design. I am a first-generation college student that is passionate about improving the university through the suggestions of all students, not just College of Business. Through being given the opportunity of interning for the legislative branch, I have had countless teachings from my mentors and our current speaker pro tempore on how we are all capable of changing the university for the better. If I were to be elected, my goals would include working with the Nevada Career Studio to open up more business internship opportunities that are primarily for women and minority students, creating a space where women's voices can be heard, listened to, and acted upon, and working with counseling services to make sure that the mental health of students and staff is positively impacted. I hope that by being open and honest with my answers tonight, I can prove to everyone watching why I should be one of the 4 voices that represents the thousands of students in our college. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Okay, we will now move into candidate Mcnutt. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds for an opening statement.
Good evening, everyone in Zoom and YouTube watching tonight. My name is Jason Mcnutt. I'm currently a 3rd-year student in the Ansari School of Business. My major is international business with a focus in finance, and my minor is Japanese language and culture. At my time at UNR, I've been very active in the club community and on campus. I've served as the chair of recruitment for the Nevada IFC, the Interfraternal Council, as well as on executive positions for my fraternal organization, and playing for the club lacrosse team for the Wolfpack. I love this campus dearly. I think it's a beautiful school, and I think there's a lot that's great about it, but I also think there's a lot that we can change and make better, can always constantly improve. And going into my last year at UNR, I want to leave a lasting impact and make changes that I want to see on campus, while also representing changes that my constituents in the College of Business and as just students at UNR would like to see. I see myself as a conduit to hopefully make this change and to be an impact on campus. And I think coming out of this pandemic, hopefully going into in-person classes next year, it's going to be very important to rebound, have strong campus culture and unity as the Wolfpack, and sticking together and having each other's backs to come out of this global crisis stronger and have the university moving forward in a positive direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Mcnutt. We will now move into our next candidate, candidate Pilks. You have a 1 minute and 30-second opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Pilks, and I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am currently a candidate for the College of Business Senate this term. Like many other students here at the university and within the College of Business, I am a first-generation student working full-time and pursuing a double major in accounting and finance. I've learned so much from our faculty and from our community in Reno, and I truly believe in UNR's mission. However, there is much work to be done to help our students reach their full potential. I say this having worked with ASUN as a club leader and as a participant in the PAC internship grant program. I am here tonight not only to help further student initiatives within the College of Business, but also to advance UNR's overall mission of graduating confident students that are ready to tackle the challenging issues of today's society. Now more than ever with COVID-19, many students continue to face housing insecurity and lack the adequate resources needed to complete schoolwork and seek opportunities post-graduation. With a lack of campus and peer-to-peer interaction, there are few opportunities presented to students to help them flourish in the real world. My primary objective as your ASUN Senator would be to work with students to help further develop their professional skills and drive community engagement. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions when appropriate.
Thank you, candidate Pilks. We will now move into candidate Ramirez. You have a minute and 30-second response time, or minute and 30-second opening statement time. I apologize.
All right, so hello everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to attend this webinar and listening to me and my fellow College of Business candidates. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a second-year student pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Marketing and a minor in Graphic Design. I am one of the current College of Business senators for the 88th session, and I hope to continue to hold this position for the 89th session and implement all that I've learned this past one. Apart from being at ASUN, I'm also a member of the Delta Gamma sorority as a director of house management and the Professional Network of Women's Club as their club's treasurer. A goal of mine includes empowering women in the professional world and allowing them the opportunity to be successful despite being faced with strenuous obstacles. I also hope to mend the relationship between the university and Greek life in order to create a more accepting and fulfilling experience for all students on campus. As for my college, I hope to improve participation from the College of Business for ASUN, starting with this election and hopefully increasing voter turnout. I hope to improve student life on campus and make their experience here an exceptional one. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Ramirez. All right, we will now move into our candidate-centered questions for tonight's debate. Okay, these questions, again, were derived from the candidates' goals and their bios. Okay, we will move into candidate Beltran for the first question. Candidate Beltran, as a senator, how would you go about giving counseling services a bigger platform as you state in your goals? By a bigger platform, do you mean more funding to them, or how do you mean?
Thank you for the question. I believe that counseling services needs a bigger platform in a way that other clubs and organizations such as ASUN should promote what it is that they are offering to students. I've learned with research that they unfortunately cannot promote their own events. So I believe it's up to ASUN and us senators to create that bridge from counseling services to students to be able to offer our services or to offer their services and ultimately make students aware of what it is that they're paying for, because it's in their tuition, they're paying for it, they should have the opportunity to be able to use it to their advantage.
Thank you, candidate Beltran. We will now move into our next candidate question for tonight. Candidate Mcnutt, how would you go about changing the procedures of student conduct under the Dean of Students Control as your role in senator, as you mentioned in one of your first goals?
Well, I think with student conduct, they are really the judge, jury, and executioner of students whenever they mess up on campus, especially recently with COVID policies. You know, they're able to charge people with things like out of the Reno area, and I think their scope has just gotten too big to a point to where it has to be of a more fair system to where they have a judge of their peers, which is a hard problem to tackle. And I don't understand it fully because I'm not like an establishment ASUN person. I'm just going into this trying to make change that I think is important. And I know a lot of people who've been affected by student conduct and how their views are being pushed down the throats of students who might not necessarily see eye to eye with other things. So I think if we have more of a diverse panel of people in student conduct and we work on having different voices come in to be able to try students in these cases. And I think it'll be more fair instead of just marginalizing students, because I think some students, because of them being a part of certain organizations or doing certain things, that they have a target on their back. And I don't think that's really equitable because, you know, with marginalized groups, it goes both ways. There's multiple different types of people who have faced scrutiny for unfair reasons. And I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed going forward, especially with the way Greek life is going, which is another problem I hope to address, which is mending the relationship between IFC and IIFC, which is why the IIFC does not want to come back onto campus, which I think is important to unifying the school, because I think in unity in there's strength, and that's really my whole platform that I'm running on.
Thank you, Kenneth Mcnutt. We will now move into our next candidate, candidate Pilks. Candidate Pilks, many of your goals listed on the ASUN website are similar to the job duties of an ASUN center. How would you hope to accomplish as senator some goals that go beyond or are not listed as explicit job duties as an ASUN senator?
Thank you so much for the question. Well, first and foremost, I think that ASUN senators have a responsibility to provide value for students. Students are paying for ASUN services. They're paying for ASUN senators to do a job. So our duty to those students is to provide value for them. So my primary objective is to increase professional development and community outreach, but that doesn't just mean posting on social media, hosting webinars that probably nobody will come to. It means actively engaging with students in this new dynamic we have as a classroom. In today's job market, it's becoming increasingly competitive, and with so many students enrolled in business programs, students need to be able to pinpoint what their specific skill sets are and start applying them early on, which is why I think it's super important that as senators, we start entering these Zoom classrooms and presenting students with all of the opportunities that ASUN has to offer. Even if they're not directly related to ASUN, our job is to make students aware of the resources and opportunities that they have so that they can flourish outside of the university when they enter the workforce. It's not so much just obtaining a degree and getting a job. It's a lot more complicated now, which is why I think that students need to be able to problem solve and communicate with each other much more effectively. And with us doing our job and providing value to students, it'll help them much more after college.
Thank you, candidate Pilks. We will now move into our last question for this portion of the debate. We'll go to candidate Ramirez. As the college with the most senators running in this year's ASUN election, how would you like to further participation from members of your college in ASUN? Are there any specific areas you would push to have them be more involved with?
So personally, for a way to have them being more involved is, I know it's in the SAS, but being just a part of our student advisory board, so business like student council, being able to kind of have more communication with them. I know past senators from this 88 session were able to sit on that and kind of converse with them, being able to share ideas. And I think with all these new faces, we'll be able to kind of do the same thing and hopefully expand that idea conversion with all of us. So sorry, I couldn't find my words, but I hopefully that made sense.
Thank you, candidate Ramirez. Thank you to the rest of the candidates as well for their answers from their bios. We will now move into general questions of ASUN, ASUN's past, and your vision for ASUN. We'll be asking a multitude of questions just due to time. We will be limiting it to one question per candidate. All questions are different, but equal in their difficulty and their importance for our campus. So we'll move on to candidate Beltran first. What is the one, if you could narrow it down to one reason, what is the one reason why do you want to become senator?
I would like to become senator because I believe that as a minority student and as a first generation student, we need a bigger voice on campus. I believe that programs such as First in the Pack and sororities have issues with making sure that their voice is heard. And I'd like to represent that and ensure that not only will we listen to what they have to say, but we will act upon it in the case that they need to be acted upon. I think that every voice is equally as important, and it shouldn't matter what color of your skin is, or what gender you are, or what sexuality that you determine that you are. I think everyone should equally be listened to and have steps taken so that you can ultimately have success and enjoy your time and experience at the university, because college is only 4 years at least, and that needs to be enjoyed and not looked upon.
The mute button was not working. Thank you, candidate Beltran. We'll move on to our next question. This question is for candidate McNutt. In the past year, ASUN has seen a consistent opposition from students, and seeing groups of this campus continue to see ASUN in a negative way. In your role as senator, what would you do better to serve your college, and how do you hope to change this perception of ASUN?
I think for a lot of students, ASUN is seen as like an insulated group that's kind of out of touch with the student body. And I kind of want to just create a space for dialogue. I know there's town halls, but how do you make these town halls more accessible and have more people come to them? And I think it's important for having students understand that they're being heard and that they see that their voice is actually having an impact on campus. You know, there's a lot of spaces for students to talk on campus, and they have their own spaces, but how do we have a space where everyone comes together and they see the things that they have in common instead of the things that they have different from each other? And I think with this opposition that's coming from the students, a lot of it is because we're taking away things they like, such as with Greek life. I know Greek life has this huge stigma against ASUN, and there's this huge stigma against Greek life. It's partially because there's not things like homecoming that we can have on campus. And homecoming is a great space for things like multicultural Greek organizations, fraternities and sororities to interact with each other in a space where they can all come to an understanding and make new friends and expand their network. So by giving students back those things, there's simple things like tailgating, which I know has many problems and issues that go with it, but how can we make something safe, fun, and enjoyable to be ran and enjoyed by everyone? When we give students these opportunities to make experiences and memories in college that they keep with them for their entire life, that's where we change the stigma around ASUN. Instead of giving things that we think that they want, how about we give them things that they actually want and have their voices be heard?
Thank you, candidate McNutt. We will now move into candidate Pilks. In the past, that is the same question, I apologize. In the recent years, the university has seen a consistent uptick of hate crimes targeted at underrepresented groups on campus. How would you as a senator ensure that all students in these groups feel safe and comfortable walking on our campus?
I think the first step as senators we can take to combating hate crimes and violence on campus is being an active listener and receptive to the inputs that students have. I don't think that, especially within the College of Business, previous senators have done the best job at reaching out to students and inquiring about the tough questions like this. I think that if any student wanted to express what they felt in regards to hate crimes or violence on campus, they would have had to reach out to a senator when it really should have been the senator reaching out to them, which is why I would tie that back with my original goal while discussing professional growth and community development, is tackling those more difficult questions like, are you being respected on campus? Do you feel safe on campus? And if not, can we tie those issues back to resources that the university currently offers, such as campus escort, police services? And if those services aren't providing value to students, then we need to find new ones. As senators, we would need to write new policies and draft new legislation that better serves those students, especially the underrepresented ones, minorities, members of the LGBTQ community, whatever it takes to make those students feel safe and represented on our campus.
Thank you, candidate Pilks. We move into our last question for this section tonight to candidate Ramirez. Let us go with what is one thing that you've seen from this past session or even previous sessions before that that you believe was either lacking or was in the wrong direction, and how would you go about in your role as senator for this upcoming session to change that?
So something that I've seen kind of lacking in this past session would probably be accountability. We just need to be able to have conducted with much more outreach for certain pieces of legislation, being able to do as much as possible. I know many times outreach has been ignored simply because, not exactly everyone is being heard, but if we have everyone in the college conduct that same amount of outreach, not just one sole person, we'd be able to get the thousands of students that are in our college. So that's one thing that I definitely want to be more open to, is just have that outreach as little as possible, just get everything as we can. And then hopefully just improve that in the future, like I said, by having open, honest conversations with other organizations on campus, such as Greek Life, all of our club commissioners, having offering aid, help for all of the clubs, just stuff like that is really important, just to be really personable and honest to all the students on campus.
Again, the mute button was not working. I apologize. Thank you, Kenneth Ramirez. We will now move into our rebuttal section for tonight. Again, candidates, you have the option to add on to your answers already, add on to any questions that you may want to ask for the other candidates, or you can simply pass as well, too. Candidate Beltran, 30-second rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
All right. Candidate Mcnutt, 30-second rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
Candidate Pilks, 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I would simply like to add and encourage students attending to think about what policies and legislation are going to be most impactful to you and your education. Of course, as the student body as a whole, there are certain objectives that would benefit everybody, but within the College of Business, I feel like there is a need for students to develop professional skills and find a place within the workforce, and which is why I would hope you would consider voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Pilks. Candidate Ramirez, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. So going on to the question about, counseling services, something that I really like to work on is kind of just work close with either the president, vice president, to be able to create a more accepting budget to be able to help counseling services and have access to those promotional materials that Candidate Beltran was talking about. I think that's really important, especially in these difficult times of COVID, to have a good source for mental health awareness.
Thank you, candidates. That will conclude our generic ASUN questions for tonight. We'll move on to the questions from the students, and I will offer it up one more time for those attending tonight's debate to please put in your answers, or not your answers, your questions now that you would like to hear from the candidates while they are answering this first one. We will go down the line. You all will be answering this question similarly. So starting with candidate Beltran, the question is, what is something that you believe ASUN is not providing to the College of Business, and how can you provide such a resource for your constituents as a senator?
Thank you for the question. I believe that ASUN is not providing enough internship opportunities to not only College of Business, but all students. From what I have learned is that the Nevada Career Studio pairs up with about 50 to 60 companies for the PAC internship program. And I believe that through working with them and ASUN together, we can help research and create more internship opportunities to be able to open it up to everyone and not just liberal arts majors that are in graphic design or business majors that are going towards accounting or economics. I think we should be able to open up to every major in every college so that everyone is able to get work experience and understand and learn if their major that they're in is for them.
Thank you, candidate Beltran. We'll move now into candidate McNutt. Same question to you. What is something that you believe ASUN is not providing to the College of Business? And how can you provide such resources to your constituents as a potential new senator?
One thing that not just the College of Business, but I think UNR in general doesn't really provide for their students is access to an alumni network. When you look at other schools like Cornell, they have their Red Network, which is like this esteemed program. It's almost like a Facebook or a LinkedIn, where you go on and you can connect with all these alumni who've went to your school who are looking to hire people. There's plenty of very, very successful people who've attended our prestigious university. So how do we build those connections between the alumni who've graduated, the students currently attending school, to give them those opportunities where they can reach out? Because I know these people who went to the University of Nevada love it just as much as we do, and they want to support students who went to their school. So how do we create spaces for these connections? And I think a great way by doing that would be creating a social network, a type LinkedIn thing, which, I mean, there's plenty of talented people in things like the computer science programs and whatnot who could work on programming this. And if not, we can reach out for outside resources to help us build this. Because I think if we do that, we can really build upon that. And that can be such a useful tool. And not just the College of Business, but UNR in general could use as a selling point that, oh, you have these opportunities, like you come to UNR, you can graduate, and then you have all these opportunities that you can reach after. Because I know when I was applying to school, that was a big thing that Cornell reached out to. Well, that really struck me about Cornell is how they have this really cool network. And I know a bunch of other Ivy League schools have that. And we're the Harvard of the West, you know? So if we don't have that, then can we even call ourselves the Harvard of the West? I don't think so. But I think if we do, well, we can pretty much solidify our standing as that.
Thank you, Kenneth Mcnutt. Candidate Pilks, same question to you again. What is something you believe ASUN is not providing to the College of Business, and how can you provide such resources to your constituents as a potential future senator?
Yeah, so firstly, I'd like to echo what's been said before, which is making yourself available to students in this new dynamic of a classroom we have, even in a Zoom environment, whether it's contacting professors, asking to speak in front of a class, or finding a way to send emails to students in a particular course. We want students to know that their Senate representatives have their best interest so that we can work on policies that are important to students, not just what we as senators think is important. Secondly, I think transparency in where our funding goes in terms of our ASUN fees. As Senator or prospective Senator Beltran brought up, we have the PAC internship grant program on campus where students can apply to select positions that the university has coordinated with companies with. And in part, ASUN funds that program. And we have opportunities that only students who have internet access, transportation access are able to obtain those positions. Students with less resources aren't able to attend those types of positions or aren't able to obtain them because they simply don't have the resources. I think it would be much more effective if we were to invest funding like that into local jobs on campus at our university, which all students have more access to, or it makes them more accessible. Because in the current state, it's not clear where our money is going, and it's not clear how all students of all ethnicities, disabilities, et cetera, are able to obtain those opportunities in a fair manner.
Thank you, candidate Pilks. We'll now move into candidate Ramirez. Same question to you for the final question. What is something that you believe ASUN is not providing to the College of Business, and how can you provide such resources to your constituents as a potential future senator?
So something that I think is really important that our own beautiful college is putting forth for our students is the International Women's Entrepreneurship Symposium. I think that's an amazing event, and just to put it out there, there's 200 scholarships being put out to students from like this university to attend it, so I definitely recommend it. But just things like that, hopefully our programming department will be able to work with them to be able to find those types of events, not only for business students, but for all students on campus. I think that's super important to have those networking connections, and how candidate McNutt said, kind of like a LinkedIn, but just a little bit more university based. I think that's super important to have. And I hope that that's something we can do in the 89th session, especially with COVID, since a lot of the programming events were canceled, all the big stuff, all the really nice concerts and stuff were canceled. We could have definitely done something with that in terms of going past town halls, going past Wolf, sorry, I forgot the name, but like stuff like that. Being able to do more programming events that go into the professional world as opposed to solely our university.
Thank you, candidate Ramirez. It appears we do not have any other student questions. So we will now move on to our closing statements for the night. Again, you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for our closing statements. Anything that you forgot to mention tonight, anything you would like to leave the students with as we go into voting here in a couple weeks, or anything else you would like to add as a last remark. So, candidate Beltran, we'll start with you. 1 minute and 30-second closing statement.
Okay, once again, thank you to everyone that came and is still currently watching. We appreciate that you've stuck around for this long in the night. I hope that through this debate, you learned how passionate my fellow candidates and I are about improving the College of Business as a whole. Through reading the goals of other candidates, the 4 senators that will be elected will provide business students with the tools and resources to create a more diverse and inclusive college. Although only 4 candidates will be represented and elected, I believe that the chosen senators are prepared to hit the ground running when the 89th session begins. I hope I was able to prove why you should vote for me to help enhance the College of Business as an organization, and look forward to potentially creating more opportunities for women, minority students, and all College of Business students as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Beltran. We'll now move into candidate Mcnutt. 1 minute and 30-second closing statement.
I also want to thank everyone again who came out tonight to watch me and all the other candidates running for College of Business Senate. I'm really inspired, and I think everyone up here has great ideas, and I'm really, really excited about what the 89th session can do. I also want to thank you, Mr. Finkler, for putting on so that we can be for constituents and they can see our platform and understand that we're people and we have faces and we exist. And just going back into, I really just want to create unity and make sure that our campus culture stays strong. You know, with COVID, my graduating class, the graduating class of 2022, is the only class that going into next year will have had a full year on campus. I think there's a lot of traditions and legacies and culture on our campus that make us unique as the University of Nevada, Reno. And I want to make sure that those stay strong while building forward on new ideas and new things that everyone has, because we all had great ideas tonight. I think if we work together and build unity, that we'll be able to get all this done. Maybe not in just one session, but we can plant the seeds to start going forward. And I think that's going to be what the 89th session leaves their mark as, is this transition of change, bouncing back from COVID. And we're going to be the senators who really can make a difference and can take a negative that has been COVID and everything going on with it and turn it into a positive, you know? So thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of you. Have a good night.
Thank you, candidate Mcnutt. Candidate Pilks, you have 1 minute and 30-second closing statement.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone again who's here tonight and who has listened for your time. I just want to go ahead and restate some of the things that I think it's important we accomplish the next session in the Senate. First, I want to be a liaison to all students at the University of Nevada, but primarily business students. I want to have communication with students, and I want to understand what's important to you, not just me or to other business senators if elected. I want to help encourage students to develop their professional skills, learn how to problem solve, learn how to lead, know how to communicate with other people, which are the driving forces of the workforce as we move forward and technology becomes more innovative. And thirdly, I want to value teamwork. I want to promote teamwork in terms of the classroom, online classroom that we have now. And I also want to work with fellow senators if elected. I want to identify common goals we all have and work towards them together. We're able to accomplish more as a group. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And I want to make the process of ASUN more transparent overall. I want students to feel like they have an active voice in student government, and I want students to feel encouraged to speak out about issues that are important to them.
Thank you, Kenneth Pilks. And Kenneth Ramirez, you will be our last closing statement of the night. 1 minute and 30 seconds to you.
Oh my gosh, so much pressure as the last one, but I just want to thank you guys all for coming, really hearing us out and being able to listen to our ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to do great things in the future session for the 4 candidates that get into the Senate seats. I also want to echo just like what my fellow candidates said, where we just want to give open, honest, and and determined opinions to all of our constituents. We want to be able to make this campus something that we are proud of, where everyone is accepted, where everyone feels like they have a place here, whether that be in their own club, whether that be in any other organization, whether that be Greek Life, ASUN, however. I think it's super important to have that open and honest communication with them. So that why transparency and accountability is so important to me, especially for the next session. And then apart from that, just being able to really show our personalities, get rid of all like the stigma of elitism and seriousness, kind of be happy and full from here on out. So hopefully we'll be able to pursue that and complete that in the next session. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you to all the candidates, and thank you again to the audience as well too for sticking it out with us tonight. Again, to those watching at home and those attending, the election for this college will be March 10th and 11th, beginning at 8 a.m. and going till 5 p.m. on that Thursday. You can vote via web campus and in person. And beginning this year, if you are a member of multiple colleges, you may vote in however many colleges you would like that you are a part of. So please don't forget to vote. Please, I would offer as well to reach out to these candidates and look at their bios and goals on our ASUN website under elections. Again, I would love to give a round of applause to all of our candidates virtually tonight, and hope everyone has a good night, and hope to see you all at the polls on the 10th and the 11th of next month. Good night, everybody. All right, candidates, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Definitely appreciate you working through my missteps and my mishaps and the dreaded mute and unmute button. Thank you again. And I look forward to seeing everyone and seeing the rest of your campaigns, and look forward to speaking to you probably the next time on the 11th when we announce the results. As always, please feel free to email me with any questions. I'm always available.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You did amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a good Tuesday night.
All right, bye guys. You guys
Yep,
also did amazing.
you were free to go.
Yeah, like who's gonna leave the Zoom first? It's
I'm out.
like waiting it out.
No. Have a good night, guys. You guys did really, really good.
All right, yeah. Good night, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Good night.
Natasha and Zane, thank you for attending as well. I don't know if you have any questions. I can see the chat, but thank you for attending. Tonight's debate is now over, so you can feel free to leave if you want. Thank you. And then Asia, are you there? Asia, are you there? Hello?